The signature at the bottom of the document made my blood run cold. I knew that elegant cursive anywhere. I'd seen it on birthday cards and notes stuck to my refrigerator for years. Mara, my own sister, had forged my signature on documents that made it look like I'd been stealing from the company for months. My name is Audrey, and until today I was a senior financial analyst at Morton & Pierce Investment Group. Now I'm sitting in my car in the parking lot, a cardboard box of personal items in my back seat, trying to make sense of how my life imploded in less than 24 hours. We have substantial evidence of fund misappropriation, Mr. Pierce had said this morning, sliding the documents across his desk. I'm disappointed, Audrey. We trusted you. This isn't my signature, I'd protested, my hands shaking as I flipped through page after page of falsified records. I would never... The forensic accountant confirmed everything. He'd cut me off with a wave of his hand. Security will escort you out. We'll be pressing charges. My phone buzzes now. Another message from Mom. Mara told us everything. How could you do this to the family name, to your sister's reputation at the firm? I switch off my phone and lean my forehead against the steering wheel. Of course, Mara got to them first. She's always been one step ahead, the golden child who could do no wrong. Even now, as she orchestrates my downfall, they believe her version without question. Audrey? A tap on my window makes me jump. It's Dean from IT looking concerned. Are you okay? I heard what happened. I roll down the window, wiping my eyes. Did you hear their version or the truth? I'm not sure I know either yet, he says carefully. But something doesn't add up. Mara's been acting strange lately, especially around Theo from accounting. Theo? I sit up straighter. What do you mean? They've been having a lot of closed-door meetings. Last week I overheard them arguing about some kind of timeline. Dean glances over his shoulder. Look, I should get back inside, but... He hesitates, then scribbles something on a sticky note. This is my personal number. If you need anything, call me. As he walks away, I unfold the note. Below his number, he's written, check the server access logs from last month. Mara's login. After hours. My hands are steadier now as I start the car. I drive to the coffee shop where Mara and I used to meet every Sunday. Before she got her promotion, before things changed. I know she'll be here. It's where she holds her afternoon meetings now. Sure enough, I spot her through the window sitting with Theo. Their heads are close together, voices low. I park across the street and watch as Theo slides a USB drive across the table. Everything's there, I read his lips saying. No one will trace it back to us. Mara's smile is triumphant as she tucks the drive into her purse. The same smile she wore at dinner last week when she announced her upcoming promotion to partner, a position I'd been in line for. My phone buzzes again. This time it's Dad. We need to talk about this, sweetheart. Come home. I start typing a response, then delete it. They won't believe me. Not yet. Not without proof. But I've got something now. Dean's tip about the server logs, the USB drive, and, most importantly, I know Theo is involved. Mara exits the coffee shop, her designer heels clicking on the sidewalk. She passes right by my car without noticing me, still wearing that self-satisfied smile. 5 years of sisterhood destroyed for a promotion and a corner office. I pull out Dean's note and add it to a fresh document on my phone titled Evidence. Below it I write, coffee shop meeting, USB drive, Theo involved. It's not much, but it's a start. My apartment keycard doesn't work when I get home. They've already locked me out. The security guard watches sympathetically as I fill a suitcase with essentials. Corporate says you have an hour to clear out, he tells me. As I pack, I find a photo of Mara and me from last Christmas, arms around each other, smiling. I turn it face down in the drawer. The sister in that photo is gone, replaced by someone who could forge my signature, steal my career, and turn my family against me without hesitation. Game on, sis, I whisper, closing my suitcase. You taught me well. Never leave a paper trail. But you forgot one thing. I know all your secrets too. And I've got nothing left to lose. 6 months into my new life in Boston. and I barely recognize myself in the mirror. Gone is the polished financial analyst with designer suits and perfectly styled hair. The woman staring back at me has sharper eyes and a determined set to her jaw. I've learned that revenge requires patience and a complete reinvention. My phone lights up with a text from Dean. Mara's been promoted to managing director. Theo's right behind her. Thought you should know. I'm typing a response when my new boss calls me into her office. Audrey, I need your eyes on something. Sandra waves me over to her desk at the boutique consulting firm where I now work under an old college friend's recommendation. These numbers don't add up. I scan the spreadsheet, spotting the discrepancy immediately. It's the kind of financial sleight of hand I've become expert at recognizing. Someone's trying to hide unauthorized transfers, I explain, highlighting the relevant cells. See how they've buried it in the quarterly reports? Sandra's eyes narrow. Just like you said happened at Morton and Pierce. Similar technique, I agree carefully. We both know my history, or the version I chose to share. Want me to dig deeper? Please do. She pauses, studying me. You know, for someone who supposedly embezzled millions, you're remarkably good at catching others doing it. I meet her gaze steadily. Funny how that works, isn't it? Back at my desk, I open my private email to find a message from an anonymous account. Interested in the truth about Mara G, meet me at Cafe Luna, 7 p.m. tonight. I trace the IP address. It's from Morton and Pierce's network. My heart races, but I've learned not to trust easily. I text Dean. Know anyone still in IT who can check outgoing emails today? His response comes quickly. Lexi from accounting sent it. She's Mara's new protégé, but word is they're not getting along. At 7 p.m. sharp, I spot Lexi sitting alone in the cafe's corner, nervously shredding a napkin. She's younger than I expected, probably fresh out of college. I know what they did to you, she blurts out as I sit down. I found the original documents, before they were altered. Mara makes me process similar transactions now, but they're getting sloppy. Why tell me this? Because she's going to do the same thing to me. Lexi's voice shakes. I know too much, and she's already setting me up as a fall guy, just like she did to you. I lean back, studying her. Prove it. She slides her phone across the table. On it are photos of documents, transfer records, emails between Mara and Theo, server logs. My hands itch to grab it, but I force myself to remain calm. Why not take this to the police? They've got friends in the DA's office now. Lexi pulls the phone back. Besides, half of these documents I shouldn't have access to. I'd be arrested before Mara. A waiter approaches and we both fall silent. When he leaves, Lexi leans forward. I can help you. I can get you more proof. At what cost? Protection. When it all comes out, I want immunity. And a recommendation for a new job. Somewhere far from Mara's reach. I consider her offer. Send copies of everything to this email, I say, writing down my secure address. But if you're playing me, remember, I've got nothing left to lose. Later that night, my laptop pings with an incoming email. Dozens of files, each one a piece of the puzzle I've been trying to solve. As I scroll through them, my phone rings. It's Mom. Audrey, please come home for Dad's birthday next month. The family misses you. Does Mara miss me too? I ask coldly. Mom sighs. She's worried about you, living alone in Boston. She says you've been sending her threatening emails. I sit up straight. What emails? Something about exposing the truth. Sweetheart, you need to let this go. Mara's trying to protect the family name by not pressing charges. My laugh is bitter. Of course she is. I end the call and immediately text Dean. Mara's creating a paper trail, making me look unstable. Be careful, he responds. She's got the board wrapped around her finger now. Whatever you're planning, make it bulletproof. I open my evidence folder, adding Lexi's files to my growing collection. 6 months of careful research, witness statements, and financial records. But Mara's latest move means I need to accelerate my timeline. Game's changing, sis, I mutter, creating a new folder labeled Phase 2. Time to remind you why you should have feared the quiet one. Ms. Blake will see you now. the receptionist announces, gesturing toward the corner office of the Boston Herald's investigative department. I straighten my blazer and grab my briefcase, containing months of carefully organized evidence. Vivian Blake isn't what I expected. Instead of the hardened investigative journalist I'd imagined, she's relaxed in yoga pants and a designer sweater, feet propped on her desk. "So," she says, not looking up from my file, "you're the whistleblower Dean told me about? The sister story." I prefer to think of it as corporate fraud with a family twist. That gets her attention. She swings her feet down and leans forward. "Show me what you've got." I spread the documents across her desk. Server logs, transaction records, Lexi's photos, even screenshots of the fake threatening emails Mara's been sending herself from spoofed accounts. "Impressive," Vivian murmurs, examining a particularly damning email chain between Mara and Theo. "But why come to me? Why not the SEC?" "Because Mara's too smart for that. She's got friends in regulatory bodies now. I need someone who can't be bought." "And you think that's me?" "I think you've built a career exposing corporate corruption. And I think you understand what it's like to be underestimated." Vivian's lips twitch. "Dean said you were good." She taps the files. "This is solid groundwork, but we need more. Direct testimony, insider confirmation." "I've got Lexi ready to talk." "The protégé?" Vivian shakes her head. "Not enough. We need someone higher up. Someone with real authority." My phone buzzes, a text from Dean. Theo's asking questions about old server access, getting nervous. "What about Theo?" I suggest. "He's Mara's right hand, but he's also the weak link. If we apply pressure..." "Now you're thinking like a journalist." Vivian grabs her phone. "I know someone in the SEC who owes me a favor. Let's see how Theo handles a surprise audit." As we strategize, my phone rings. It's Sandra from work. "Audrey, remember those suspicious transfers you flagged? They lead back to Morton and Pierce. The board wants to meet with you tomorrow." After leaving Vivian's office, I find Dean waiting in the lobby. He's grown his beard out since I left Morton and Pierce, but his kind eyes haven't changed. "Thought you might need coffee after that," he says, holding out a cup. "How'd it go?" "Vivian's on board, but we need more ammunition." I take a sip, savouring the familiar comfort of our coffee ritual. "How well do you know Theo?" "Well enough to know he's been drinking at O'Malley's every night this week, alone." I raise an eyebrow. "Really?" "Don't do anything stupid, Audrey." Dean touches my arm. "Mara's dangerous when cornered." "So am I." I check my watch. "I should go. I have that board meeting tomorrow." "Let me drive you home, at least." In the car, Dean's quiet for a while before speaking. "You know, when this all started, I thought you were just angry. But it's more than that, isn't it? It's about justice," I say, watching the city lights blur past, and making sure she can't do this to anyone else. He pulls up to my building but doesn't unlock the doors. "Just be careful, okay? Some people are worth losing everything for. I'm not sure Mara's one of them." I turn to face him, suddenly aware of how close we are. "I'm not losing everything. I'm gaining something too." His hand finds mine in the darkness. "Yeah? What's that?" "Myself." I squeeze his hand, then let go. "And maybe something else too." Later that night, my laptop pings with an email from Vivian. "Theo took the bait. SEC audit scheduled for next week. He's panicking." I'm drafting a response when someone knocks on my door. Through the peephole, I see Lexi looking terrified. "Mara knows," she gasps as I let her in. "Someone told her I copied the files. She's cleaning house, deleting everything." "It's okay," I assure her, though my mind is racing. "We have backups." "You don't understand." Lexi pulls out her phone, showing me an email. "She's calling an emergency board meeting tomorrow, the same one you're invited to." She's trying to get ahead of the story, I realise. Frame it her way before we can expose her. What are we going to do? I grab my phone, texting Dean and Vivian. "Emergency meeting tomorrow. Mara's making her move. Time for plan B." Then I turn to Lexi. "How good are you at public speaking?" Her eyes widen. "Why?" "Because tomorrow we're going to give them a show they'll never forget." I pull out my laptop. "And you're going to help me write the script." Dad's birthday party feels like walking into a minefield. The moment I step into my childhood home, conversations drop to whispers. Mom's perfectly manicured smile doesn't reach her eyes as she hugs me. Audrey! We didn't think you'd come. She grips my shoulders, examining me like I'm a stranger. You look different. Boston agrees with me, I say, scanning the room. Where's Mara? Oh, running late as usual. Such a busy executive, you know how it is. I do know. I've memorized Mara's schedule better than she has. Dad emerges from his study and his face lights up. There's my girl. His hug is genuine, warming something inside me I thought had frozen. Come see what your sister sent, quite the extravagant gift. On his desk sits a gleaming Rolex, the exact model I'd mentioned buying him last year, before everything fell apart. Beautiful, I manage. Must be doing well at Morton and Pierce. Speaking of which, Mom interjects, she's being featured in Financial Weekly, rising star under 40E or something like that. The doorbell rings and suddenly she's there. Mara sweeps in like a hurricane in designer clothes, air kissing everyone's cheeks. Audrey! She freezes for a split second before recovering. What a surprise. How's the new job? Enlightening, I reply, watching her face. We should catch up. I'd love to hear about that SEC audit coming up. Her smile tightens imperceptibly. Before she can respond, Theo appears behind her, looking worse than when I last saw him. Dark circles under his eyes, slightly rumpled suit. Theo, darling, you remember my sister? Mara's voice is honey-sweet poison. How could I forget? His handshake is clammy. Still in Boston? Still drinking at O'Malley's? I counter quietly. He drops my hand like it burns. Dad calls everyone to dinner, and I find myself seated between Mom and Theo, directly across from Mara. The perfect staging for what comes next. Pass the wine, Theo? I ask innocently. As he reaches for the bottle, his sleeve rides up, revealing fresh ink on his wrist. Nice tattoo. When did you get that? Last week, he mumbles. Funny. I take a sip of wine. Isn't that right when the SEC announced their surprise audit? Mara's fork clatters against her plate. Audrey, dear, how's your love life? Still single? Actually, I've been seeing someone. He works in IT security. Fascinating field, all about digital footprints and server logs. Mom jumps in, desperate to change the subject. Did everyone see the lovely article about Mara? Not yet, I smile. But I heard Vivian Blake is working on quite an interesting piece about Morton and Pierce. Theo chokes on his wine. Mara's face goes pale. Who's Vivian Blake? Dad asks. Oh, just the most respected investigative journalist in Boston, I explain. She has a nose for corporate fraud. Speaking of which, Theo, how's Lexi doing? She quit, Mara cuts in sharply. Personal reasons. Really? I had coffee with her yesterday. She seemed fine to me. The tension at the table is thick enough to cut. Mum's hands shake as she serves dessert. Audrey, Mara's voice is steel wrapped in silk. Can we talk privately? In Dad's study, she drops the act. Whatever you think you're doing, stop. Now. Or what? You'll forge more documents. Send yourself more threatening emails. I'm trying to protect this family's reputation. Everything I did for us. No, I step closer. You did it for yourself. And now you're scared because Theo's cracking, Lexi's talking, and your perfect house of cards is about to collapse. You have no proof. I pull out my phone, playing a recording. Theo's voice slurred but clear, confessing everything at O'Malley's last night. That's just the beginning, I whisper. I learned from the best, sis. Never leave a paper trail unless it's someone else's. A knock at the door makes us both jump. It's Dad. Everything okay in here? His eyes move between us, concerned. Perfect, Mara says brightly. Just catching up. As we return to the party, my phone buzzes with a text from Dean. Vivian's story runs tomorrow. Theo just called her office wanting to talk. I watch Mara charm the room, laughing at Dad's jokes, refilling Mom's wine. She thinks she's won, that she's still in control, but I see the cracks in her facade, the way her hands tremble slightly as she raises her glass. Happy birthday, Dad, I say, hugging him goodbye. Sorry, but I have an early meeting tomorrow. With who? Mara asks sharply. I pause at the door, savouring the moment. The Boston Herald, they're doing a fascinating story on family dynamics in corporate America. You should read it. The look on her face as I leave is worth every second of waiting. Vivian's office is chaos when I arrive the next morning. Phones ringing off the hook, reporters huddled around monitors, and in the centre of it all, Theo sitting with his head in his hands. Your sister's been calling every 10 minutes, Vivian says, waving me over. The story's gone viral. Morton and Pierce's stock dropped 12% in the first hour of trading. I want immunity, Theo blurts out as I approach. I'll tell you everything, but I want a deal. That's not my decision, I reply, sitting across from him. But Vivian has friends at the SEC who might be interested in what you have to say. His confession spills out like a burst dam. The original scheme, how Mara convinced him to help frame me, the years of cooking books and falsifying records. Vivian's recorder catches every word. She said it was just once, he says, voice cracking. Just to get rid of you because you were asking too many questions. But then it became a pattern. My phone buzzes, Dean's calling. You need to see this, he says when I answer. Mara's doing damage control. Turn on CNBC. Vivian flips on the office TV. There's my sister perfectly composed in a power suit, addressing reporters outside Morton and Pierce. These allegations are completely unfounded, she's saying. My sister has a history of mental health issues and a vendetta against this company. We have documentation proving... You mean these documents? Lexi's voice cuts through the crowd. The camera swings to show her holding up a thick folder. The ones you made me forge last week? The press erupts. Mara's perfect mask slips for just a second before she recovers, but it's too late. The cameras caught it all. Send everything to the SEC, I tell Theo. Every email, every document, every conversation you remember. It's your only chance. He nods numbly, then looks up at me. I'm sorry, Audrey. I really am. Save it for the prosecutors. Back at my apartment, Dean's waiting with coffee and takeout. You okay? He asks as I collapse onto the couch. I should be celebrating, I say, staring at the ceiling. Why doesn't it feel like a victory? He sits beside me, close enough that our shoulders touch. Because it's not over yet, and because it's family. My phone lights up with a text from Mom. Please tell me this isn't true. What have you done? Before I can respond, another message appears, from Dad. I found the original documents in Mara's old room. We need to talk. I should go see him, I say, but Dean catches my hand. Not tonight. Tonight you rest. Tomorrow's going to be intense. He's right. By morning, the story has exploded. Vivian's article is everywhere, complete with Theo's confession and Lexi's documents. Morton and Pierce announces an emergency board meeting. The SEC launches a formal investigation. We've got her, Vivian says when I reach her office, but she's not going down without a fight. She's right. Within hours, Mara's legal team releases a statement claiming all evidence was fabricated, along with medical records suggesting I have a history of paranoid delusions. Those are fake, I say immediately, but Vivian's already ahead of me. Already confirmed with your actual doctors. She's desperate, making mistakes. My phone rings. It's Mara. After a year of silence, seeing her name on my screen feels surreal. What do you want? I answer. A truce, she says, her voice tight. Name your price. Whatever they're paying you for this hit piece, I'll double it. This isn't about money, Mara. It never was. Then what? Revenge? Congratulations, you've ruined me. Happy now? No, I say quietly. I'm not happy. I'm sad that my sister turned out to be exactly who I feared she was. There's a long pause. The board meeting's tomorrow, she finally says. Last chance to back down. See you there, sis. After I hang up, Dean pulls me into a hug. Whatever happens tomorrow, you're not alone anymore. I lean into him, allowing myself this moment of weakness. I know. My phone buzzes one last time, a message from Lexi. Mara just called an emergency meeting with her legal team. She's planning something big for tomorrow. Let her plan, I text back. We've got something bigger. I open my laptop, pulling up the final piece of evidence I've been saving. The original security footage from the day Mara forged my signature, captured by a camera she didn't know existed. "Ready for tomorrow?" Dean asks, watching me work. I think of Mum's disappointment, Dad's confusion, the family dinners that will never be the same. Then I think of all the other potential victims I'm saving from my sister's schemes. "Ready," I say, hitting send on an email to Vivian. Time to end this. The Morton and Pierce lobby feels smaller than I remember. Security guards eye me warily as Dean and I walk through the metal detectors. My old badge, reactivated for today's board meeting, feels heavy around my neck. "Ms. Gomez," a familiar voice calls. Mr. Pierce himself stands by the elevators, looking older than I remember. "I hope you understand the gravity of today's meeting." "I do," I reply. "Do you?" The elevator ride to the 40th floor is tense. Dean's hand finds mine, squeezing gently. When the doors open, we're greeted by a circus, reporters held back by security, board members huddled in groups, and Vivienne Blake holding court near the conference room. "They're all here," she murmurs as we pass. "SEC investigators, major shareholders, even your parents." My steps falter. "My parents?" "Mara invited them, trying to make this personal instead of professional." Inside the boardroom, Mara sits at the head of the table, flanked by lawyers. She looks immaculate as always, but there's a wildness in her eyes I've never seen before. "Welcome, everyone," she begins as the room fills. "We're here to address some unfortunate allegations." "Save it," Mr. Pierce interrupts. "The SEC has questions about certain financial discrepancies." "Which I can explain," Mara says smoothly. "But first, I'd like to address the source of these malicious claims. My sister Audrey has a documented history of—" "Actually," I cut in, standing up, "let's talk about documentation. Specifically, this security footage from last year." I nod to Dean, who connects his laptop to the projector. The video plays, crystal clear. Mara at my desk after hours, practicing my signature before forging it on company documents. The room erupts. Mara's lawyers huddle around her, whispering frantically. I see Mom cover her mouth in shock, Dad's face hardening with disappointment. "That footage is inadmissible," one lawyer shouts. "It was obtained illegally." "Wrong," Dean speaks up. "As head of IT security, I maintained all surveillance systems legally. This footage has been authenticated by 3 independent experts." Mara stands, her chair scraping loudly. "This proves nothing except that I signed some documents. As senior partner, I had authority." "To forge signatures? To frame your sister for embezzlement?" Vivian steps forward, dropping a thick file on the table. "We have Theo's full confession, Lexi's testimony, and every document you falsified over the past 3 years." "Theo?" Mara laughs, but it sounds hollow. "A drunk who's angry about being passed over for promotion? And Lexi, my disgruntled ex-assistant?" The boardroom doors burst open. Theo walks in, followed by 2 SEC investigators. He looks sober, pressed, and terrified. "Tell them what you told us," one investigator says. Theo can't meet Mara's eyes. "It started with Audrey. Mara said we needed to remove her because she'd discovered irregularities in our international accounts. After that, it became a pattern. Every quarter, more adjustments, more cover-ups." "You're lying," Mara's composure cracks. "You helped me. You were part of everything." "Yes," Theo says quietly. "That's why I kept records. Insurance, I called it. Every email, every conversation, every transaction." Mr. Pierce stands slowly. "Mara, is this true?" She looks around the room wildly like a cornered animal. Her eyes land on our parents. "Mom, Dad, you know me. I did what I had to do, for the family, for our reputation." "Stop." Dad's voice is heavy with grief. "Just stop, Mara." The SEC investigators move forward. "Ms. Gomez, we need you to come with us." What happens next seems to move in slow motion. Mara lunges for her laptop, probably trying to delete evidence, but Lexi's faster. She grabs it first, backing away as Mara reaches for her. "It's over," I say softly. "Let it go." For a moment our eyes meet. I see the sister I used to know, the one who taught me to ride a bike and helped me with math homework. Then she straightens, smooths her jacket, and turns to the investigators. I want my lawyer present for any questions. As they lead her out, Mum starts crying. Dad puts his arm around her, then looks at me. We should have listened to you. I'm so sorry, sweetheart. The boardroom slowly empties. Dean takes my hand again, and this time I don't let go. You okay? He asks. No, I answer honestly. But I will be. My phone buzzes, a text from Vivian. Stories going live in an hour. Want to comment? I look around the room where everything ended and began. Not today, I text back. Today's for family. Let's get out of here, Dean suggests. Get some coffee? I smile, feeling lighter than I have in years. Coffee sounds perfect. The courthouse steps are swarming with reporters as I make my way inside. 3 months after the board meeting, it's finally time for Mara's arraignment. The headlines scream corporate scandal of the decade and sister versus sister, the Morton and Pierce conspiracy. Ready for this? Dean asks, adjusting his tie. He's taken the day off to be here, just like he's been there every step of the way. Before I can answer, Vivian appears, notepad in hand. They're offering her a deal. 5 years if she pleads guilty and returns the money. She won't take it, I say. She'll fight. Inside, the courtroom is packed. I spot Theo sitting with his lawyer, looking haunted. Lexi's there too, surrounded by SEC investigators. Mum and Dad sit in the front row, leaving space between them. The bailiff calls for order as Mara enters in handcuffs. Her designer suit can't hide how pale she's become, how the past 3 months in custody have worn her down. For a moment our eyes meet, and I see something I've never seen before in my sister's face. Fear. How does the defendant plead? The judge asks. Mara's lawyer stands. Your Honour, before entering a plea, we'd like to present new evidence suggesting my client was herself a victim of corporate espionage. Objection. The prosecutor jumps up. This is an arraignment, not a trial. Sustained. The judge looks irritated. Ms. Gomez, your plea? Mara stands slowly. Not guilty. A murmur ripples through the courtroom. Dad shakes his head. Mum starts crying again. During the recess, Theo approaches me in the hallway. She's going to try to pin everything on me, he says, voice shaking. Her lawyers found inconsistencies in my testimony. Because you were drunk when you gave it, I ask. He nods miserably. I've been sober 60 days now, but they'll use it against me. Say I was unreliable, confused. We have the footage, I remind him, and Lexi's documents. Mara claims Lexi forged those too, says she was trying to take her job. Before I can respond, shouting erupts near the courtroom doors. Mara's being led back in when she suddenly breaks away from her guards, rushing toward us. You ruined everything, she screams at me. I built this life from nothing, and you destroyed it because you were jealous. Security guards grab her arms, but she keeps struggling. Tell them the truth, Theo. Tell them who really orchestrated the whole thing. That's enough, the judge's voice booms through the hallway. Get the defendant under control, or she'll be remanded without bail. As they drag Mara away, I notice something odd. She's smiling. It's the same smile she wore the day she got me fired. She's planning something, I tell Dean later at the coffee shop. I know that look. He sets down his cup. The prosecutor called. They found a laptop in Mara's apartment with encrypted files. They're trying to crack it now. My phone rings. It's Lexi, sounding panicked. Mara's lawyer just submitted new evidence. Emails between you and me, planning to frame her, but they're fake. I never sent them. She's been preparing for this, I realise. All those months before we exposed her, she was creating a backup plan. There's more, Lexi continues. They're claiming the security footage was doctored. They have an expert witness ready to testify. I hang up and turn to Dean. Can you prove the footage is authentic? Already working on it. But Audrey... He hesitates. There's something else. Someone broke into the IT department last night. The original server logs are missing. My coffee goes cold as we piece it together. Mara's not just fighting the charges, she's trying to flip the entire narrative. Make it look like I orchestrated an elaborate scheme to frame her out of jealousy. We need to talk to Vivian, I say, standing up. If Mara wants to play this game, we'll beat her at it one last time. But when we reach Vivian's office, She's waiting with news of her own. The SEC just called, she says grimly. They found something in Mara's financial records that changes everything, something that leads back 15 years. To our father's company. My world tilts sideways. What are you saying? I'm saying this goes deeper than we thought. Mara wasn't working alone, and tomorrow in court, she's going to reveal who really taught her how to commit fraud. I sink into a chair, remembering Dad's face when he found those documents in Mara's room, the way he's been avoiding my calls lately. Well, I say finally, looks like tomorrow's going to be interesting. Dean squeezes my shoulder. Whatever happens, we face it together. I nod, watching the sun set over Boston's skyline. The truth about our family is about to get much uglier, but for the first time, I'm not afraid of it. The courtroom falls silent as Dad takes the stand. His hands shake as he's sworn in, but his voice is steady when he speaks. Yes, I taught Mara everything she knows about creative accounting. It started at my own company, small adjustments to keep us afloat during the recession. I never meant for it to go this far. Mara sits perfectly still, watching him testify. Mum's already left the courtroom, unable to bear it. And Audrey? The prosecutor asks. Did she know about any of this? No, Dad sighs heavily. She was always too honest. That's why Mara saw her as a threat at Morton and Pierce. She knew Audrey would eventually figure it out. I feel Dean's hand slip into mine as Dad continues describing years of financial manipulation, of teaching Mara to hide money through shell companies and false documentation. The same techniques she used to frame me. During the recess, Mara's lawyer approaches with a final plea deal. Your sister's willing to testify against your father in exchange for a reduced sentence. Of course she is, I say, watching Mara whisper with her legal team. She's still trying to win. Back in session, Mara takes the stand. She's ditched her power suits for a simple blouse, playing the role of Daddy's corrupted little girl. I was just following what I was taught, she says, tears glistening. When Audrey started investigating the accounts, I panicked. I'd watched Dad handle whistleblowers before, so I did what he would have done. That's a lie. Dad stands up, but the bailiff orders him back to his seat. Vivian leans forward, whispering in my ear. She's throwing him under the bus to save herself. Classic Mara. But something's different this time. As Mara weaves her story of being manipulated by our father, I see the mask slipping. Her hands keep fidgeting with her watch, her tell when she's lying. During cross-examination, the prosecutor pulls out a surprise. We've recovered data from your encrypted laptop, Ms. Gomez. Would you like to explain these emails from 8 years ago before you even worked at Morton and Pierce? Mara's face goes white as the emails appear on the courtroom screen. Messages to offshore accounts, plans for embezzlement schemes, all predating her time with Dad's company. You weren't following anyone's playbook, the prosecutor continues. You were teaching your father your methods, weren't you? The courtroom erupts. Mara's lawyer demands a recess, but it's too late. The truth is finally out, written in Mara's own words. Dad stares at her, realization dawning. You said you learned it all from me. Because you wanted to believe it, Mara snaps, her facade cracking completely. Poor, weak Dad, so eager to think he was the master manipulator. You were just another mark. The judge calls for order as Mara's taken back into custody. Her lawyer immediately starts talking plea deals, but the prosecutor looks to me first. It's your call, Ms. Gomez. You're the primary victim here. I look at Mara. Really look at her. Behind the designer clothes and practiced smile, I see something broken that was probably always there. Offer her the original deal, I say. 5 years. But she has to make full restitution to everyone she hurt. Later, outside the courthouse, Dad catches up to me. I'm so sorry, sweetheart, I should have seen it sooner. We all should have, I reply. But we saw what we wanted to see. Your mother and I, we're selling the house, paying back everything I took, starting fresh. Good. I hug him, smelling the familiar aftershave. That's what second chances are for. Dean's waiting by his car, talking with Vivian about her upcoming book deal. Theo and Lexi stand nearby, both looking relieved it's over. Ready to go home? Dean asks as I approach. Actually, I pull out my resignation letter from the consulting firm. I have a better idea. He reads it, eyebrows raising. You're starting your own company. A financial oversight consultancy, I explain, helping companies identify and prevent fraud. Vivian's already agreed to be on the board. Using everything Mara taught you against people like her, he grins. Perfect karma. Want to help? I ask. I need a good IT security expert. His answer is a kiss that makes Vivian wolf whistle and Theo awkwardly look away. That evening, I visit Mara one last time before she's transferred to federal prison. She sits across from me in her orange jumpsuit, still somehow looking like she's wearing Prada. I don't expect you to forgive me, she says. I don't forgive you, I reply. But I understand you now, and that's worth something. She nods slowly. You won, little sister. Fair and square. No, Mara. I just stopped letting you win. Walking out of the prison, I delete her number from my phone. Some family ties need to be cut to heal properly. But as Dean drives us home through the Boston night, I feel lighter. The truth cost us our old family, but it gave me something better. A life built on honesty, surrounded by people who earned their place in my story.